Okay, so thank you for the question. What I was talking about was, for those of you who were not part of the conversation, I was in Denmark, and a young girl who was 16 said that her mom told her that she wasn't Muslim. When we asked her why, she said, "Look at me." When we looked at her, nobody could figure out what she was talking about. And then she pointed to what she was wearing, which was jeans and a t-shirt. And this imam had been trained outside of Denmark, and actually didn't speak Danish, and really brought his understanding of Islam from his village in Morocco to Denmark. That's really not helpful to a 16-year-old kid who's growing up in Copenhagen. The issues of imam training, and I'm putting that in quotes because it's a terrible terminology and nobody seems to be able to figure out a better one, is really complex because you have countries all across Europe that do things in different ways. In Germany, for example, they've turned it over to the Turks. So the Turks basically pick their imams. The government of Turkey picks their imams, sends them to Germany. And there's really no vetting that goes on. It's the Turkish government that picks that. You have other countries in Europe who allow people who to learn about Islam by going to other countries and come back and then preach. There's no standard within a lot of Muslim communities of what it means to be an imam. And then you have second and third and fourth generations in some places who don't understand the distillation of what it means to be an imam, because in Islam there is no hierarchy of, like Christianity, where a cardinal, a bishop, or a priest or a minister. I mean, it's a very different kind of thing. An imam is somebody who is a learned person and is also somebody who leads the prayer. So when you have societies and communities that don't know enough about the religion, they're looking to sources that can validate their understanding or their belief. If you have imams that don't understand what I was specifically talking about, European history, or speak European languages, it's really hard to talk to a young generation. How do you help that person navigate through the identities? What is the role of government there? Really careful. Okay, my belief is that the government, as I said, I'm going to use this term another time, the convener, the facilitator, and the intellectual partner with NGOs and other organic and credible partners in those countries that can actually help facilitate some of this. A government can't train a religious leader. A government can't give a check mark and say that's a pure Muslim and that's not a pure Muslim. I mean, that's absurd. But what you can do is you can help strengthen the way in which communities understand what's going on, and governments can, in fact, ease up on some of the local laws that are preventing people from being trained within their countries. Interestingly, France, for example, has a university in Paris, which is I can't remember the name. I'm sorry, I'm going blank. But it's predominantly a Christian theology university that has a training course for Muslims to learn about Islam, and they can then become imams. The University of Leiden in Holland does the same thing. There are 5 or 6 different programs around Europe in which they've tried to figure out how to make somebody an imam by giving them like a 1-year course or a 2-year course, which is not exactly the best way of getting to the issues that they need to get to, but it's how government is actually helping to try to figure out how to solve those key issues. What I do know is that you could think about an institution like Al-Azhar, which is one of the oldest institutions for Islam in the world and outside of Cairo, and it's in Cairo, and think, well, does Europe need the equivalent of an Al-Azhar, where European Muslims themselves can be trained by Europeans to talk about these things? This conversation is happening at Oxford. This conversation is happening in various other parts of Europe, because they're trying to drive answers. Government comes in through funding, and government can come in through promoting that conversation.